What up to my peoples, and welcome to Retro Crunch, your number one source for retro pop culture and news. And to start off this week's news. Okay, so I lied. So before we actually jump into some retro news, I learned this week that James Earl Jones is actually retiring from playing the voice of Darth Vader in the Star Wars movies. He's been voicing Darth Vader for nearly 50 years, and him signing off the rights to voicing Vader, it's a little bit sad, but it's expected considering Jones is 91 years old now. This doesn't mean that we're not still going to hear his voice, but he's no longer going to be actually recording the lines for the movies and the other Star Wars media. In the future, they're going to be using archive recordings and AI to actually create the voice. And now that I told you all that, let's talk about some retro news. So just in time for the holidays. The 1992 classic A Muppet's Christmas Carol is going to be coming to Disney Plus on December 11th, which is actually the 30th anniversary of the film. And then on top of that, it's actually being released in its uncut format, which is going to be including more footage and the addition of the song When Love Is Gone. But what I kind of find funny here is the fact that instead of cutting footage and censoring Disney movies like they like to do nowadays, Disney is actually adding some content. Who would have thunk it? Oh, and then speaking of Christmas, Ryan Reynolds and Will Farrell, they have a new adaptation of A Christmas Carol that's going to be coming out called Spirited. This is going to be a musical. It's going to be released in theaters on November 11th, so mark your calendars. Oh, and then coming up on September 27th, don't forget that The Munsters is going to be premiering on Netflix. If you are anxious to see Rob Zombie's version of the Munsters movie, now's your chance. And then next up, here's some TV show news that you might be interested in. According to some trusted sources from the website Giant Frickin' Robot, I love that website name. There's a Men in Black TV series that is going to be made over at Amazon Studios. The site, they didn't have much to say about the news, but keep an eye out if you're a fan of MIB movies. Then another Amazon exclusive being made is Blade Runner 2099. It's been greenlit by Amazon and it's going to start production soon. This is a live action show that's going to take place 50 years after the sequel, Blade Runner 2049. Basically, 2023 is going to be a really sci-fi-tastic time for Amazon, if that word even makes sense. But they have a lot of shows in the works. Okay, so moving on to some other news, we have some really fun retro things that I want to tell you about. First off, McDonald's is bringing back the Halloween pails that were released in 1992. If you remember, the original buckets were offered nationwide in 1986, and they came as containers of a Happy Meal. And in then 1989 and 1992, they made some changes though. The pails that McDonald's is selling for this Halloween are McPumpkin, McBoo, and McWitch, which resemble the 1992 version, but still it's cool to see that McDonald's is putting these out again. If you want to collect them all, they're going to be going on sale October 18th through the 31st at all participating McDonald's. And then my favorite news this week is that Target is going to be selling action figures from the Dungeons and Dragons 1980s cartoon. So far, there's no release date on when these things are going to ship, but you could already pre-order them off of the Target website, and I'll link to it down below in the description. Right now, Venger and Dungeon Master, they come as a set, and then you can buy Hank and Diana and Bobby, and I think Bobby comes with Uni. They're going to be in their own packaging. These are like 6-inch figures, and they're going to cost between $25 and $50, and I believe the $50 is for the big Venger pack. Now, Eric, Sheila, and Presto, they weren't on the Target site when I checked, but I expect that they're probably going to be available at some time later down the road. And each set is going to be coming with a die. So if you collect all of the figures, you're going to have a full set of D&D dice. This is the best looking D&D action figure set for sale that I've seen for the cartoon figures. Except for the statues, those are pretty good. But with Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves coming out in 2023, this is really a perfect time for these toys from the 80s cartoon to be hitting stores. But if I hear any more news on when the whole set is going to be available, I'll be sure to let y'all know. And then moving on, I have a few more stories that I want to mention before we go. On October 18th, a book about Shari Lewis and Lamb Chop is going to be hitting bookstores. If you're a fan of Shari and her puppet Lamb Chop from the days of like Captain Kangaroo and those old children's shows, you might want to pick this book up. And a movie biopic about the 1990s band Sublime is now in development. That's going to bring the story of the rock band to the big screen. There's no casting or release date that's been set yet, but stay tuned, and when we find out more, I'll let you know. And one thing that I wanted to try to add to my retro videos is if I do a mail call. So I actually got a little bit of mail in. It's actually some retro swag, so I wanted to show them to you real quick. So this is one thing that I got. It's the Star Wars Retro Collection. It has Stormtrooper, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, and Han Solo. This for me is really cool because it really reminds me of the early bird set that came out in the late 70s. So I thought that was really cool. And I actually have my set back here in the corner. You might be able to see a little bit of it, which was the actual early bird set. So that's one of the things I got. And Mr. T. Mr. T is one of my favorite pop culture icons of the 80s. Love Mr. T, and I got the Ultimate Collection Mr. T right here. This is actually from, or this is supposed to represent when he went to WrestleMania, which I think is really, really cool, and I figured I'd show you guys that as well. And that's your retro news for the week. If you're into retro news and nostalgia stuff from back in the day, I'll see you in the next video. I'll catch you on the flip side, and remember, if it ain't retro, it ain't worth watching.